Hello, all you patrons. Welcome to a special Halloween pre-show.
Ooh, very scary kitties. Very scary. Ooh.
Yes.
Our patrons look frightened and they're all in costume.
Frightened of what, you think?
I don't know, each other perhaps, because they're very expensive costumes.
Absolutely.
I mean, look.
Well,
Have you...
Go on.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, obviously, whatever money they're not putting into their Patronian hood, they spend on Halloween costumes this year. Look at that! You see the lady over there dressed like a fairy? My gosh, is she supposed to be Galadriel?
Galadriel.
Yes, I think she's supposed to be Galadriel. And but all right. So the guy in the corner looks like he's not sure if he wants to be a minotaur or a pantomime horse. Well, whatever you are, sir, welcome and happy Halloween. Ah. And how are you feeling, Gandalf?
I'm feeling great, Charles. I just just trying to
rally the forces to the west.
That's right. I'm just trying to have the strength to defend my people, right? See?
All right.
The One Ring.
Oh.
One Ring. Yeah.
One ring to rule them all, eh?
That's right.
Watch out for them Balrogs.
All right.
Well, it's Halloween. Sort of. Not quite.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. It was Emperor Karl's feast day last Thursday, which was celebrated very well in all sorts of places. And just to show you that my neighbor's children are not going to be left out, look what arrived.
Ah, Brock's classic candy corn. Nice.
You bet. I got 3 more bags of this stuff, and it's going to vanish on Halloween.
Wow. Talk about a tummy ache.
Well, luckily, it'll be. There are quite a few of them. The people around here actually don't believe in birth control.
There are quite a few candy corn.
Quite a few children. The candy corn. I mean, candy corn is not by itself a method of contraception or of fighting it.
Oh, okay.
What I'm saying is because they don't believe in contraceptives. There are a lot of little tinies running around these buildings. And so this candy corn is going to vanish into many little mouths, but not sufficiently into any one to give them any stomach aches.
I see. All right, well, that's good, Charles. That's good.
Are you stringing candy corn for the decorations?
No, I have my minions do that.
It is. So is the old Gandalfian tower going to be surrounded with candy corn?
Absolutely.
Well, that's good. I'd rather go trick or treating at Gandalf's place than go trick or treating at Saruman's.
That's a no-brainer.
I wouldn't think so. I don't know what he would give you. Trick or treat, trick, boom. Ooh, they are pretty good. They are pretty costumes. You shall look like them now forever.
All right, time for the questions.
Okay, let's see what we got.
All right, a question from Giovanni who says, what is the history behind monks having skulls for decorations? What is a skull chapel and what is its history?
Oof. Well, Giovanni, you've really come up with a macabre question for Halloween. And the answer is that the monks were great believers in memento mori, remember death. It's not remember Mori. Mori was such a nice man. We all miss him. No. It's Mori is remember death. And so many monks and other religious of various kinds would have a skull or two around to remind them of death. But here's the thing: when you had a long-established monastery, you'd eventually produce a lot of dead nuns or brothers or whatever you happen to have. And over time, in some places, how do I put it? In some places, their skeletons are used for decorative purposes. Again, to remind us of death. Usually, I don't mind telling you, this custom would arise after old plagues and things like that, when not only were there a lot of dead people around, but death was and judgment and heaven and hell were very much on people's minds. So I, you know, I really think that there's no what's the word I want? It's outre to us, to say the least. And I know, having been in several of these skull chapels at various places, it's a little off-putting, shall we say. What's interesting is that they very often would label the skull, anyway, with a name. And so the idea was, in addition to everything else, you would pray for them, which is a more mindful way of putting it in your face. I mean, think of it this way. How many times when you go into a church and they've got beautiful stained glass, and the glass says on the bottom of it, pray for Dr. and Mrs. Maurice Sullivan, or whatever. Do we think to say a quick prayer for them?
Yeah.
So it's the same idea.
Hmm.
And remember, too, that a monastery of any long standing really is a family. And if you were a brother, say, at the Abbey of Melk here in Austria, Klosterneuburg or whatever, you are literally carrying on anywhere from 500 to even 1,000 years of unbroken monastic life. It's quite something.
Hmm.
And the skull chapels also remind us of that continuity. As you are now, so were they. As they are now, so shall you and I be. It's a little bit a reminder, like the very common epitaph in New England graves, which was "Stranger, pause as you pass by. Where you stand now, so once stand I. So once stood I. Where I am now, so you shall be. Be prepared to follow me." Although on one occasion I saw someone who kind of painted under that, "To follow you, I'm not content till I find out which way you went," which I figure is a fair caveat.
So what's the skull chapel?
It's a chapel made of skulls. It's
Oh,
exactly what it sounds
I
like.
thought perhaps there was a special monastery that was
There's
nicknamed
there are,
that.
no, there are a number of them that have them. And for that matter, there are actually places, villages that have skull chapels made of the villagers.
Any particular ones you'd like to mention?
Not really. I can't think of any particular ones at all. I think the catacombs of Rome, you'll find something similar, and in Paris as well.
Let's see.
But you'll find that they've got them in Poland. They've got them in various places.
Okay.
And they have mummies too.
What?
They have mummies too, like in Guanajuato in the state of Leon. Was it? No, it's in the state of Guanajuato in Mexico.
Why would they have a mummy?
Well, because the bodies preserve, given the natural setup, the bodies sort of self-preserve. And you've got to remember, there's always the question of space for new ones. So the old ones get taken out and sort of stored, and the new ones get put in the coffins and then mummify on their own and then get taken out, and so on.
Oh, they're in coffins?
Initially, yeah.
I see. I was wondering because they don't have the same beliefs as the Egyptians. So when you say mummy,
No, they don't mummify them. I mean, it's a natural process. They don't mummify them the way the Egyptians did. Mummification can happen naturally, depending on the climate. There's a church in Dublin, St. Mickens, where the bodies are all mummified.
Does that
Naturally.
mean wrapped up? What does that mean?
No. What it means is that the bodies lose their moisture. You know, what makes you rot is the moisture.
Mm.
But if for whatever reason the natural circumstances that the body is in, and it depends upon what the soil is made out of, the air. There's a lot of different things that contribute to it. But basically, in certain places and areas, the bodies are naturally mummified. And in fact, at St. Mickens, there's the body of a crusader whose hand I myself have shaken. He lies. He's there in this open coffin. You shake his hand.
They let you do that? Isn't that a danger?
No, they stopped it recently, actually. Oh. But they did when I was there, and they've done it for hundreds of years. I shook his hand.
Wow.
It's a strange old world filled with strange things. I shouldn't have to tell that to a wizard, though.
Indeed. Okay, question from William, who says, "Salutations, Charles and Vincent, on a spooky night of the 25th of October. Can you tell us anything about the macabre Sedlec ossuary? Are there any other such sites in Christendom? Also, please pray for me. My birthday is on the 26th.
Let's do that first. PATRON, Spiritus Sancti, Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Happy birthday. Well, it goes back to what I was saying. Ossuaries are bone storage places, as it were, and they have them all over. In different parts of Europe and Latin America. And everything I said about bone chapels is true of ossuaries.
So, where's Sedlec?
I believe it's in Poland.
I see. And so an ossuary isn't necessarily Catholic?
Well, no. I mean, there are all sorts of ossuaries, but they do have a lot of Catholic ossuaries.
So, if it's not Catholic, then it's not done for memento mori reasons, right?
Well, sometimes it is. I mean, it depends upon the culture and the religion that does it. And sometimes it's just done for convenience. I mean, one of the things you find in a lot of places in the world is that when you're buried, it's only for a period of time. It's conditional. And you have to pay extra if you want to keep the body there. Otherwise, out they go. And when they go out, the bones get stored in an ossuary. One of the interesting customs in New Orleans, because of the way the bodies rot there, is that they can't bury people in New Orleans because the water, the water table is too high. So they have these above ground graves throughout New Orleans and southern Louisiana. And basically, your family tomb is an above ground structure. And it's built in such a way, this is kind of gross, but basically it's built in such a way, the bodies are put in, and they rot very quickly. And then what's left gets pushed toward the back, and the next body goes in.
In what?
The next body goes into the niche.
Into a niche.
Right, in your family tomb. In other words, by the time Grandma's gone, rotted away, and you're ready to put in Uncle Ted, Grandma gets pushed down, and Uncle Ted gets put in.
I see. Well,
no, it's the way things are there. They didn't do it that way. As I say, they can't bury them because of the soil and the water.
Is there like an incineration option or something like that?
Not exactly, but the bodies, because they rot so quickly, there's not that much left by the time you push Grandma back and replace her with Uncle Ted.
Uncle Ted. All right.
Or Aunt Betsy, if you prefer. It's very sad about Uncle Ted and Aunt Betsy, really.
All right. Yes.
I mean, it's a tragedy, if you ask me, what happened.
I agree 100%. All right, moving
Terrible,
on.
Actually.
French
what?
question from French guy number 1 who says, "Hail to the Prince of Publishers, His Royal Majesty Vincent. And of course, the Tsar of the Bizarre, Charles I, Emperor and Autocrat of all the oddities. The season of All Hallows Eve is upon us. The Wicked Witch..."
I can see somebody is still sore about Uncle Ted and Aunt Betsy. All right, fine. We won't talk about them. Be that way. Go ahead. Give me my titles. I don't care.
The Wicked Witch of the West brews her potions and schemes maniacally, while her resurrected zombie shambles around aimlessly in a vain attempt to find purpose. But enough about Kamala Harris.
Aunt Nancy and the president out of this.
Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Yeah, enough about them. I present 2 questions, one on current events and one of a paranormal persuasion.
Oh.
Firstly, a very important election is coming up next year in France, and a massive wrench has been thrown into the gears in the form of Eric Zemmour. I have been watching him throughout these last couple of months, and he seems to be having a real impact. It seems the commentators are also shocked, as it seems Zemmour may actually have a fighting chance. What is Charles's opinion on Mr. Zemmour? He seems to have a bit of a Charles Marois in him, about him. And while not perfect, at least he seems to recognize the importance of Catholicism in France in both historical and cultural terms. And while I know that his crystal ball is back home in California, what do you think will happen in the French presidential election?
Well, that's a good question. Zemmour is an interesting guy. He's actually, I don't know what his current religious status, if any, is, but he's Jewish. His family are Jewish. The Jewish Berbers, who were in Algeria and who became French citizens, and thus really sort of honorary pied noir. And they emigrated to France before he was born. So it would be interesting to have a pied noir or a pied noir descendant at the helm in France. It's certainly about time they got their due. If ever there were people that were cheated in so many ways, it was the pied noir, the French settlers in Algeria, who just got the rawest of raw deals, frankly. Well, he certainly has a lot of people running scared. You know, I don't know enough about him to have an opinion about him. He's a longtime journalist in France. I'd always distinguished himself for his opposition to Islam, for his opposition to gay marriage, abortion, and so on and so on. And he's always talked about the need to erase the difference between the so-called far right and the quote-unquote respectable right in France. You know, it's hard to say. But at least he's got some of the people who need to be running scared. If only they would run all the way to, you know, Pluto, wherever they come from, that'd be good. But it's certainly, he's the man to watch, and it'll be fascinating to see how it works out. I think we're pretty much done with Macron. I'm tired of him. I got tired of him. Quit.
So prediction or what?
No prediction, because Zemmour, to my knowledge, has not even declared that he'll go into the race. He's talking about it, and even more people are talking about it other than he. But I don't know how it's going to work out. I really don't. And of course, as I'm sure he's aware, if he does run for it, he will be demonized as only moderns can demonize him. You know, the little moral midgets that inhabit the Catholic Twitter sphere in some places are nothing to compare to what this guy's going to have to deal with if he runs. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to put myself and my family through that? Do I want to be vilified continually? But he's a newsman, he's a journalist, so he may have the guts. It's hard to say. We'll see.
All right. And final question for the pre-show is from Carl, who says, as a federal worker, it appears that soon I might be fired for not taking the vaccine. If that happens, I plan to emigrate, as it will be a sign to me that we have passed the threshold my children and grandchildren will not pass back over. Looking at how mandates in the federal workforce eventually bleed into all workplaces. Save for the rise of a strongman or even a figure such as Putin, I am most concerned with the almost universal rot of our institutions and the increasingly centralized power beholden to those institutions. After living in the heart of Europe, which countries would you wager will be safe from vaccine mandates in the future and also are on a positive spiritual and cultural trajectory?
Well, that's a hard question to answer because the rot, even in countries that at the moment are holding their own, there's a lot of pressure on them, and it's hard to say what will happen in the future. But I would say Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, Croatia, Slovenia, Czechia, everywhere in the old empire except Austria itself.
Wait, why?
Why? Because Austria is Western and goes in for all the crap. We're going to have euthanasia this coming year, the way we had gay marriage 2 years ago, because their high mightinesses in the Supreme Court ruled it so. And you know that in the West, the judiciary is supreme. That's why when the Polish government took away the judicial supremacy, that bastion of democracy, the European Union Commission, who of course are all unelected morons, they attacked Poland for limiting judicial freedom. And of course, judicial freedom means the freedom to rule their subjects without answering to anyone. That's just done in the United States.
Wait,
what?
So, what was the process for Poland to abolish the judiciary?
They didn't abolish the judiciary. It's just that the judiciary no longer have total and complete control over everything. There are limits to their power now, and this was very upsetting. Oh no! Oh.
Well, how do you limit that?
Well, since we'll give you specifics since you asked, and that means going to Wikipedia, source of all truth. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, here you're going to see it. Polish judiciary damaged by morons. Here we go. Poland's judicial reform not compatible with EU law, escalating a standoff that could trigger financial penalties. So basically, what's happened is that the law reforming the judiciary has set up a disciplinary chamber to oversee Polish judges with the power to lift their immunity, to expose them to criminal proceedings or cut their salaries. Oh no, they'd have to answer to someone. Can you imagine? It'd be so awful. They couldn't just play God, changing the nature of marriage through their will, changing the definition of humanity about death. I feel so terrible. Think of all the millions of infants who might not die. Wait a minute. Anyhow, the point is that there's nothing that drives me crazier than people yapping about judicial freedom. The bloody bastards have the blood of millions of infants on their hands in country after country across the globe. That's what your judicial independence has brought you. No. And every time I hear some idiot bring up Thomas Paine's argument against monarchy, that, oh, God didn't want Israel to have kings. He wanted them to continue to be ruled by judges. Well, you know what, my munchkins? We are ruled by judges. Eat it. And happy Halloween to you. Morons. It's just so awful. Imagine having to answer to somebody. Ooh. I can imagine. I can see why their high-mindednesses would be horrified. I mean, that's the kind of thing that could spread. And what if bureaucrats became answerable? Oh no! It'd be terrible. I mean, when you consider the European Union's leadership are all bureaucrat and answerable to no one, you can see why the very idea would make them shiver in their little rear ends. Oh, the poor darlings. I feel so bad for them.
All right.
Not that I'm angry.
That's right.
Because, of course, the EU will attempt to punish Poland financially. And the question is, will they succeed? Will they get away with it? But, you know, and that's why it complicates the question, because all of Western Europe, plus the United States and Canada and Australia and so forth, are on the side of crap in terms of their governments anyway. And so those countries that are not on the side of crap, that are not, we're trying to break out of the not pornocracy, the coprocracy. That's rule by excrement for us Greek scholars. It's very difficult because the coprocrats have such power.
How could the United States go about reforming the judiciary in the same way Poland did?
Well, unfortunately for us, that would require some sort of a amendment to the Constitution. Although, to be honest with you, both the president and the Congress have the ability to use legislative or executive set-asides if they want to, but generally they don't.
Someone in the comments a while ago said, "Where in the Constitution does it talk about a set-aside and that power?"
It doesn't. Just like the Supreme Court's own power is not discussed in the Constitution, but in fact was assumed by the court with Marbury versus Madison in 1832. A lot of this stuff just happens.
So what was the incident that was equivalent for the set-aside?
Golly, I don't remember. To be brutally frank, I'd have to look it up. But one of the most recent was with Guantanamo.
Yes.
And there was some pressure on President Bush, for instance, to save Terry Schiavo's life through his set-aside, but he was more interested in arresting the Chief Justice of Alabama at that point, so he was busy.
Right. So, okay, so a constitutional amendment would be what is required for...
Well, it would be required to make anything permanent, yeah. And, of course, getting a constitutional amendment out of 3/4 of the states is not as easy as it looks. Plus, both houses of Congress have to sign off. And, you know, the rabid zoo that we have for Congress, you know, could you imagine what a constitutional convention would look like if we had one? It would be all woke all the time. It would be amazing. You know, sometimes people don't really catch reality until they get their faces slammed against the wall. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
Yeah. I wish we weren't like that. I wish we could, like, figure crap out without being smacked around and kicked in the head.
No.
Oh, well, can't have everything, as Gandalf said to the Balrog.
Gandalf did not say that to the Balrog. He said, "You shall not pass."
What do you mean? Well, yeah, but this was on the way down.
Yeah, while he's fighting the Balrog as they're falling into the abyss, he says, "Oh, well, you can't have everything."
That's what he said. Tolkien didn't write it down, though.
I'm disappointed in you, Charles.
You seem confused.
Sad.
Oh, yeah? Sad is that Radagast never got the respect that was due to him.
Radagast, is that the other wizard? Is that the brown one?
Radagast the Brown. Yeah, he never got. See, you can barely remember him yourself, and you're Gandalf the Grey.
I didn't know what his deal was.
His deal was the animals and the birds. He liked nature. He was sort of a 60s person. You know, he was like in touch with the earth.
But he wasn't really a player like I am, you know?
Well, no, like Saruman. And then the other two who just went off on their own, you know, you never hear about them.
Yeah. It's weird.
So really, if you think about it, the tribe of the 5 wizards didn't really do too well. 2 of them vanished completely. We don't know what happened to them. One of them gets stuck on the shelf. The other betrays everybody. And that leaves Gandalf, who probably you were plotting to have your 4 brethren set aside so you could come out on top.
Well,
you were angling for Saruman's job, see, and he played right into your hands by betraying the cause. A little bit. Is that kind of a weird reading of Lord of the Rings?
It's pretty weird. Yeah.
Yes, but it's Halloween. Anything could be true.
All right, that will do it for the pre-show, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed it, but stay tuned for the full episode.
It will, and don't take your costumes off. You all look marvelous. See you soon, gang.